You folks may recognize the face to my right because that's your pal Sully from Locked On MLB, and he's going to talk with us about the Pirates offseason, their goals, their needs, and all of that and more on the Locked On Pirates podcast.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Of course, this is the second episode that you guys are getting today on November 21st. Again, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. It's going to be a fun day on Thursday. I get to drive 4 hours that day because I'm driving 2 and 2 because I work tomorrow night and Friday morning. So that's how my Thanksgiving is going. But we all know our pal Sully's going to have a good Thanksgiving because he's always mentioning great baseball stuff, great baseball mind. Emmy-nominated podcast host, by the way. If you guys don't listen to his show, you should. But Sully, how are you today, sir?
I'm good. I should probably point out that I was not nominated as a podcaster. I was nominated for my work as a television producer in San Francisco. So that was that. So I wanted to sort of get that straight. But but what do I know? How you doing, buddy? I'm here. I'm getting ready to do, to talk a little baseball and, see what's going to unfold with the Bucks, which, by the way, is a team that I have said over and over is a team that I have a very, very, it has a huge, huge place in my heart. And basically, I would love to see the Pirates win. In fact, I have my little wall of fame back there. I have what's called the rule of 7, where you start following a sports team. You get your earliest memories of being a sports fan when you're around 7 years old. And right back here is the 1979 baseball preview. I was 7 years old in 1979. The first World Series I remember watching was the 1979 World Series, the Pirates We Are Family. And I've always loved that, which has my buddy Jim Rice. I'm a big Red Sox fan, so Jim Rice and Dave Parker. I think both should be in the Hall of Fame, but
they should be, yes. But
they should be.
That's a conversation for a whole nother day on the Baseball Hall of Fame and its many shortcomings. But if you guys have not noticed, also, by the way, Sully, I've been on your show more times than I can count, probably.
That's true.
This point. But I do think this is the first time that you've ever just been on Locked On Pirates.
That's true. That's true. I've always hosted, so this is the first time I'm surrounded by the gold and black of basically any Pirates team, or any Pittsburgh team. Was the basketball team in the Fish That Saved Pittsburgh? Did they wear black and gold too? I was trying to figure out if everyone stayed consistent.
The Pittsburgh Pipers and the Pittsburgh Condors.
Yes.
We're going back that far. The Pipers did. The Condors were red, white, and they were red. They were like Harlem Globetrotter-esque.
Gotcha.
But they were also only in Pittsburgh for less than a year and had like a winning percentage of like 200. So I don't think a lot of people really remember too much about it.
Yeah.
But at this juncture, Sully, it is November 21st.
Yes.
And not a lot has happened.
No.
In the offseason at all. And I mean, really, I guess you could say the biggest news has been managerial hires and stuff like that. Aaron Nola, of course, signed his big extension. Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson are St. Louis Cardinals, which just is a peachy thing to hear for me as a Pirates fan that they're just getting pitching right now. But from an outside view looking in, Sully, what do you think about the Pirates now? And what do you think they need to do this offseason? The floor is yours.
It's interesting. I think we saw last year, we went into the National League Central in 2023, and I thought the Cardinals were such overwhelming favorites because I said they seemed like to be the only team that seemed to be trying. And the Cardinals crashed and burned spectacularly to the point where people are thinking, Should they trade Goldschmidt? Should they do these other things? I see them signing a lot of veteran pitchers who let up a lot of runs, let up a lot of homers, got shelled last year. I don't see that as being the key. Now, of course, they could say, maybe a change of scenery, or for the case of Lance Lynn, return to the place where he became a World Series champion. Maybe as Elton John sang in the song, get back honky cat, maybe a change will do you good. But you're also hoping for a lot of players to turn things around on a Cardinal team. Now, why am I talking so much about the Cardinals in a Locked On Pirates episode? Because the Pirates don't exist in a vacuum. Because we still have a divisional system. I don't believe we should. I think we should eliminate divisions, but we're not there yet. And so the Pirates have to finish better than Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Louis, and Cincinnati, and they will be a playoff team. And they don't have to worry. They don't have to worry about the Braves. They don't have to worry about the Mets. They don't have to worry about the Phillies. They don't have to worry about Los Angeles. They don't have to worry about San Diego. They don't have to worry about any of those teams. Okay? A couple of things are starting to happen, which would, if I were a Pirate fan, would make me feel a little better. And that is, I don't trust what the Cardinals are doing. I also don't trust what the Brewers are doing. The Brewers have taken away their quality manager, and they may start to shed payroll. I went in last year thinking if Milwaukee just stumbled out of the gate, they were probably going to have a fire sale. But as it turned out, no one wanted to win the division, and the Brewers wound up winning the division kind of handily, even though the Cubs put a little bit of an effort towards the end. But they fell apart as well. So the Pirates we saw, who got off to a good start last year, they were actually a wild card team in June. Early June, they were one of the wild card teams. Now, of course, we all know it was disastrous. They had a disastrous June, and soon the wheels fell off the place, and people were pining for the glory days of Andrew McCutchen, and then they said, "Oh, there he is." They said, "Yeah, but it's not the same." The Pirates have a lot of good young talent. The Pirates have some good players who showed signs of playing well and signs of adversity, kind of like the 2012 Pirate team, who contended for a little bit, and then the wheels fell off the truck, and that led to their 3 straight trips to the postseason, and how the wild card series worked against them by facing Bumgarner and Arrieta in back-to-back years. I know some of my fans are sick of me saying this. If they got past Arrieta, I'm convinced the Pirates would have won the pennant in 2015. The way they were playing at the end, the way their strengths were, if they got past Chicago, I think they would have beaten St. Louis, and they probably would have beaten the Mets. Now, whether or not they would have beaten Kansas City, I don't know, and neither do you. But I look at this Pirate team, and I think, okay, obviously you don't go on a wild spending spree. You don't carelessly spend money. But you could intelligently spend money. You could pull what I call Jorge Soler Eddie Rosario's syndrome, which is make sure you got a major leaguer everywhere. Go through, see who's out there. You're not going to get the big superstar. They're not on the short list for Shohei Ohtani. I don't want to be the one to break that news to Ethan Smith. But if they spend smartly, if they patch holes, if they say we're going to have more major leaguers than not, and if you look and you sort of see who they have in the pitching staff, you aren't going to get a superstar ace, but make sure you have at least a couple of decent starting pitchers and a couple of decent relievers. They aren't that – I don't think they're that far behind Cincinnati. I don't think they're that – and I think that Milwaukee is going to come down. And while I think the Cubs are going to improve – now, of course, if the Cubs sign Ohtani, and he's a prime candidate to sign there, that's fine. But, you know, you could cross your fingers and hope that Contreras improves after he has, a dozen starts or so, that Ortiz may pitch better, that you may see some improvements in their bullpen with another year under their belt, and could Brian Hayes and, what's his doodle? Why am I blanking on his name? Your shortstop.
O'Neal Cruz.
Thank you. I lost my brain for a second. Henry Davis wasn't good this year, but he was only 22 or 23. I mean, you're hoping that if you have a lot of these players who can now build upon that, and I think just to sort of acquire one veteran hitter, one veteran pitcher, and one veteran reliever. Do I think that will mean they'll win 112 games? Yes. Yes, I do. Okay, maybe I don't. But they're 87 wins might win this division.
It's very possible.
Yeah, and they're not playing in a vacuum. I do not trust this Cardinals team. I do think this Milwaukee team will come crashing to earth. And so then you look up and you say, can they play better than Chicago and Cincinnati? So it makes it, you have to be smart. You have to make the right moves and be smart. Obviously, and hope that you can live by the mantra of mediocre is better than bad. So if you had a bad player and you fill it with a mediocre player, you've now made an improvement. And maybe the chain reaction of events, the great blueprint for the Pirates and hope for their fans is Arizona. And Arizona had a much harder road to hoe because they're in a division with Los Angeles. They're like when they lost 100 some odd games in 2021, the Giants won 107 games, the Dodgers won 106 games, and the Padres were playing supermarket sweep at free agency. And if you had told me when the Giants and the Dodgers were facing off as a multiple 100-win team that the next NL West team to make the World Series would be the Diamondbacks, you would have sent me to an insane asylum. But that's exactly what happened. And the Pirates don't have that type of hill to climb. And if you look at the acquisitions that the Diamondbacks made between their 100-and-something loss team and winning the pennant last year, their biggest paid player was Madison Bumgarner, who was DFA'd in May or April. I can't remember. All I know was before Memorial Day. And they didn't have – and the Goldschmidt trade didn't yield a bounty of superstars. And so – but they filled in holes with veterans. You saw the effect of an Evan Longoria on that team. He wasn't a huge free agent acquisition. And that's kind of the blueprint that the Pirates have to have. Mm-hmm. And cross your fingers that Milwaukee, Chicago, and St. Louis don't figure things out. So I do think there's what I liked about the Pirates season this year is it looked like they had a plan. Mm-hmm. And it's like, all right, we're not going to win this year, but we're doing stuff. And I think if you play to the division, as long as we have divisions the way we do, a winning season is not out of the question for the Pirates this year. And a winning season might be enough to put them in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that thinking about it that way too is like a lot of times people want to think about how the Pirates compare to everybody in the National League. But with you saying that, again, your main four things, and this is even true in other sports like other divisional sports like football and hockey, your main goal every year should be to win your division first. That's always goal number one because that guarantees that you are in the playoffs. Now, to speak on some of the things you did mention, you said one starter. I will go ahead and say that the Pirates probably need at least two for me to even be slightly comfortable because Johan Oviedo may need Tommy John surgery.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Also, Mike Burrows will be on the second half of this show who is recovering from Tommy John surgery, which has been a massive issue in this organization for quite a bit. So you really look at what the pitching is right now, and it's Mitch Keller and everybody else. And obviously you have the potential generational talent in Paul Skeens, but is he going to start here right away?
No.
Probably not.
No, nor should he.
No.
You know, when you have that type of look at, I'm a big believer in you play the best 20. What is it now? 26 on the roster.
26, yes.
You have the best 26 the best healthy 26 in your organization in the major leagues. I don't care about manipulating playoff. What's it called? Service time.
Yeah.
None of that should ever be a factor. Okay. But I also don't believe that if you have someone, he's a key part of your team, and you don't want to Todd Van Poppel him. You know, for those of you who don't remember Todd Van Poppel, he was considered to be one of the best high school pitching prospects of all time, and he signed a contract with Oakland that ridiculously it guaranteed he would be on the major league roster by X number of time. He wasn't ready. And he got hammered, and it basically destroyed his career. And if they just brought him up normally, if he turns out to be a David Price and shoots through the organization, fine. But you don't want to ruin that. At the same time, you don't want to if he's mowing him down, bring him up.
Yeah,
even if you're using him out of the pen, bring him up, because you want to get him to become a major league pitcher as soon as it's responsibly possible for him to do.
Yeah, and I think that that's a reasonable goal to have as well. And I think for the Pirates at this point, so you mentioned 2012, and I wanted to go back to that. You go and look at the comparisons of this team to the comparisons of the 2012 team, and they're obviously very different. You're talking about an 11-year difference of players. But then I want to connect another dot to something you said, Sully, if everybody was keeping up with everything.
I said
you mentioned Evan Longoria's impact that he's had on the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Mm-hmm.
What better veteran presence to have on a roster than a guy who is quite literally the person that guided the team that he is currently on in their last playoff appearance 8 to 9 years ago?
Right.
And I think that when you start connecting the dots on a lot of these things, and I've thought about the NL Central and what these teams are going to do, and pitching is going to be the thing across the board. We've already seen it with St. Louis, with Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. I think Cincinnati's going to do the same thing with the plethora of offense that they have. The Pirates need it, and now the Brewers lose Brandon Woodruff. Who knows where Corbin Burns is going to be? Is he going to be a Brewer at this point?
In fact, Chuck Freeman of Locked On Brewers was on the show, and he believes we both think that there's a strong possibility that he could be dealt with Yelich's big contract attached to it, kind of the way that the Red Sox attached David Price in the deal for Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
I'm not defending the Mookie Betts trade. It's one of the worst trades of the 21st century. But I do think the Brewers are going to start the rebuilding process. And I think that's one of the reasons why Counsell left. Yeah, I think he read the writing on the wall, and he said, okay, I don't want to sit here for this.
No. And as far as what you would say, and you kind of elaborated that 87 wins could win this division next year. But
or make a wild card spot. Or make a wild card spot.
Very possible, too. For the Pirates, though, let's say off-season wise, they do what you said. They get that one veteran bat, that one veteran or one or two veteran arms, and a reliever. And they go in the next season with the possibility that Skeens comes up midway through the year. You get Mike Burrows back. You get JT Brubaker back. You get another year of Henry Davis, hopefully a healthy year of O'Neal Cruz. How does this all come together to where you think that this team could be competitive in 2024 from the outside looking in? Because everybody's heard me say this a million times. They've heard what I've said needs to happen. I'm just interested on the outside looking in. Who do you think are the biggest factors into this Pirates team being a potential playoff team in 2024?
Oh, Hayes and Cruz. I mean, and maybe Reynolds and Sawinski, having the big moment. But then, Hayes and Cruz have to take the next step. They need to go from, major leaguers to legitimate all-stars. This is why you develop players like this. And we've seen this in Atlanta. We've seen this with some of the other teams where the homegrown players emerge at the same time. You know, Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte did that this year with Arizona. And you saw what happened when those players took the leap forward. Then suddenly you have a 1-2 punch. You have those types of players who could, in stretches carry a team. And you saw, like, even in the postseason, Carroll wasn't playing well for a chunk, but Marte picked up the slack. I mean, that's the key. We can talk all you want about veteran this, veteran that. They have to be the complementary pieces. But the main thrust has to be, like when the Pirates started winning in the mid-2010s. It was the homegrown player. It was the McCutcheons leading them to that point. That was the key. So I mean, if Henry Davis, lest we forget that Henry Davis, who wasn't good last year, but he was a top draft pick. He needs, if he could develop into, if Cruz and Hayes can turn to superstars, and Davis can turn into an everyday player quality. I'm not even asking for him to be a superstar, but have him be an above average player. Then all of a sudden you have those pieces in place. You get rallies going, and it could cover up bad pitching. That to me is so much a larger part of it. They had veterans on the team last year. Santana was a good veteran. McCutcheon's a good veteran. A lot have been there, done that, fine. But they didn't get the big season out of Cruz. They didn't get the big season out of Davis. They didn't get the big season out of Hayes. So you got to have as many pep talks from your veterans as you can, but you need the young. It needs to be a combination. And you saw what happened. You saw what happened with Zach Gallen when he became an ace. You saw what happened with Marte when he became an all-star. You saw what happened with Carroll when he became, he had this spectacular rookie season. Okay? That's what has to happen with the Pirates. And you have to hope that this was the learning curve. You have to hope that this was them stubbing their toes. There are plenty of great players who stumbled out of the gates. Mike Schmidt was terrible his first couple of years in Philadelphia. It took forever for Bernie Williams. I remember I was living in New York when people were saying Bernie Williams, all this potential, he stinks. Eventually, the Rubik's Cube clicked, and he became, a legitimate all-star, and I think the most underrated player of those Yankee teams, or at least the most underappreciated. And that's what has to happen. You could look up and you say, well, maybe Connor Joe can do this, or Castro can do that, or someone like Andy Rodriguez can get a big hit. That's all fine, but you need those key players, the core players, to turn into your MVPs. And by the same token, you're going to need some of that young pitching. There's a lot of young pitching on this team, and some of it stunk up the joint. And so what you need is for some of those pitchers to turn it around. Contreras has to look up and say, I got my 12 starts. I stunk. But John Smoltz stunk his first year. Tom Glavine stunk his first year. A lot of pitchers stink their first year. So that's what you have to – that's the key, the turnaround of these young players.
Yeah, and if you could say just one last thing as we wrap up here, Sully, to Pirates fans, what would it be about this offseason and going into next season?
You're not in a vacuum. I know I said that before, but that's the most critical thing. You're not in a vacuum. If you are working forward with your young players and the other teams are regressing, that's in your favor. You're trying to get to 87 wins, and the other teams are reducing their win total. Okay? That is working towards your advantage. So don't reverse. Don't rebuild. And take a look at this team and say, hey, there is young talent on this team. And the Pirates, you're hoping the Pirates right now are where Milwaukee was in, say, 2016, 2017, when they were getting some of those players and putting them into place. And they went on, granted, they haven't won a pennant. They got to Game 7 of the NLCS in 2018. So this run for Milwaukee hasn't had the big spectacular finish that everyone wanted in Milwaukee. But I have a feeling if I asked Pirate fans if you would be okay with going to the postseason, let's see, the Brewers in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, they just missed last, and make the postseason 5 out of 6 years. Make it to the NLCS once. I mean, obviously, what you want to do is you want to replicate the We Are Family Pirates. But I have a feeling Pirate fans would take 5 playoff appearances in 6 years and roll the dice.
Yeah.
And so, the Pirates could be in that spot where Milwaukee was in 2016 or 2017. And so that's what you have to just sort of hope that the other teams regress your way and some of the young stars click. Because, the Yelich's and everyone started clicking, and all of a sudden they're in the postseason and they're a legit playoff team. And they had a lead in Game 7 of the NLCS in 2018 before, Puig hit the home run that, bounced off the center field wall. But, there's hope for this team.
Yeah.
I think there's hope.
And so do I. And Sully, thank you so much for coming on to this show. Hopefully everybody enjoys all of that insight, because I do think that sometimes, although I'm hosting a show that is just for this team, I do think it's nice to get the outside perspective on this stuff a little bit, because I do obviously know that there are some biases to having your favorite teams across sports. No, not at all. So hearing it from an unbiased source, folks, this is Sully Baseball. Sully, tell them where they can find your show, because it's pretty much in the same places you can find mine, just a little bit different spelling at the end.
Well, you can find us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever the hell it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And I'm going to throw out my trivia question. I'm throwing out to the Locked On Pirates listeners, as well as you, the Locked On MLB listeners who are listening right now. And the trivia question is, and maybe this will be easy for you as a Pirate fan, but 2 Pirates are tied for the team record of games played. What? Don't answer it. I want the answers right in the YouTube comment section, or on Twitter, or whatever it's called now, or Instagram, wherever. So, 2 Pirate Hall of Famers are tied for the most games played as a Pirate in a Pirate uniform. Which 2 Hall of Famers are tied for most games played as a Pittsburgh Pirate? That is your trivia question. And it's harder than you think, because there's a bunch of Pirate Hall of Famers who put out some long years with the team. Yeah. And in fact, when I saw it, I did a double take, because I was positive another name was going to be on there, and it wasn't. But 2 are tied. So that's your trivia question. Put it in the comment section of this video, or at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram, Sully Baseball on Twitter and Instagram, at MVP_Ethan on the Twitterverse, or Locked On Pirates on the Twitterverse, or wherever you get it. But hey, thanks for having me on. He's Ethan Smith. My name is Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.
Yeah, of course. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Tomorrow's show will be about what Pirates fans have to be thankful for, as Thanksgiving is on Thursday. But until then, see you guys on the flip side, and enjoy the interview with Mike Burrows.
Don't hit stop record yet. Okay? Don't hit stop record yet, because let's. Hey, look, it's Ethan Smith of Locked On Pirates. I'm Sully from Locked On MLB. And let me tell you something. It's the NFL season. Did you know that? Did you know it's the NFL season there?
Well, there's some big news out of Pittsburgh today, so I'm pretty sure it's the NFL season.
Well, there you go. Well, I hope Terry Bradshaw is okay. Oh. But if you want to score, go to FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. And if you're thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season in late November. FanDuel, it's the official partner of the National Football League.
And folks, I don't know if you know, by the way, if you're on Locked On MLB, hi, but this is also Locked On Pirates. And if you didn't know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day. with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So go to the Locked On Sports Today podcast on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel.